Good morning, friends. My name is Dr. Amit, and with me is Dr. Aditya. And I welcome you in the second session of this morning. And in this session, we have a very engaging neuroscientist, I would say, because we just about a 1.5 hour back, we had a wonderful session with him in the Indian version of this retreat. So I welcome Dr. Andrew Newberg because he is a neuroscientist par excellence, I would say, because personally I read one of his book, How God Changes Your Brain. And although I come from a medical background, I'm a physician, but to understand the concept of how meditation structurally and functionally changes our brain was something which I learned from his book and from his researches. So I welcome, sir, Dr. Newberg, you in this forum. And I would also like our audience to just give them a little background about you. That Dr. Newberg is currently the research director at the Marcus Institute of Integrative Health at Thomas Jefferson University and Hospital in Philadelphia. He's a professor in the Department of Integrative Medicine and Nutritional Sciences with a secondary appointment in the Department of Radiology at the same university, and he's adjunct professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. He's a board certified in internal medicine and nuclear medicine. He has actively pursued a number of neuroimaging research projects, which have included the study of aging and dementia, epilepsy, and other neurological and psychiatric disorders. Dr. Newberg has been particularly involved in the study of mystical and religious experiences, a field referred to as neurotheology. He has published 10 books, which have been translated into 16 different languages. He was listed as one of the 30 most influential neuroscientists alive today by the Online Psychology Degree Guide. Now, that is quite something, Dr. Newberg. I really welcome you. I think your introduction things can go on and on, but in this session, he will be talking with us on the subject of meditation and brain. And this interview will be exploring, what the research has to say that how meditation is helping our brain. So I welcome you, sir, once again. Very happy
Thank
to
you.
meet you. Yeah.
Thank
And
you. It's a
thank
pleasure to be here.
Likewise, sir. And thank you to all our audiences who've joined. Friends, you can also send in your questions live while this interaction is going on. We actually, in the previous session, already have a built up of questions which we will be bringing up in right now in this session, but we're happy for more questions to pour in. And to begin in this conversation over here, Dr. Andrew, I'd like to ask, because it was very fascinating, not just for myself when I picked up your book in 2015, brought it as a gift for Dr. Amar, and then have gifted that book to many others. And we come from Ananda Sangha, the spiritual NGO. That book is quite popular in our Sangha. And but it also brought out this curiosity in me and many others that how did a neuroscientist get so deeply interested in the subject of theology and brought it together as neurotheology? If you could tell us if this began in childhood or where did this influence start?
Sure. Well, it did actually begin in childhood. In a lot of ways, I just always had a lot of questions about how we understood the world. I was intrigued by I think the fundamental question that I have always been pursuing is, how do we understand reality? How do we know what reality is? And it grew out of a bit of a frustration of seeing different religious traditions, different political perspectives. To me, it's sort of like, if we're all looking at the same world, why are we not all coming away with the same conclusions? So we've got to figure this out. And I realized that, well, I had to start with the human brain because that's the part of ourselves that helps us to look at all of this information and try to make sense of it. But as I went through my training and as I got into university work and ultimately into medical school, I began to realize that as wonderful as science is, there are certain fundamental questions that science struggles with, and especially when it comes to human consciousness and the nature of reality and some of the philosophical questions that come up about all of that. So I started to look at different philosophical ideas, different religious and spiritual perspectives on all these questions, and looking at both Western and Eastern traditions, and really trying to embrace all the different perspectives that were out there. And then all of this kind of crystallized when I was in medical school. I had the good fortune of working with two wonderful mentors, one in the neuroimaging area, and then one in the area of trying to understand a little bit more the nature of religious and spiritual experiences. So on one hand, I was doing all this high level research looking at Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's and depression and so forth. But we were still pursuing the question about, well, why do we have these experiences, and how do practices like meditation and prayer affect us? So kind of the proverbial light bulb went off, and I said, well, if we're doing brain scans of Alzheimer's disease, why can't we do brain scans of meditation? And then that kind of started that process. And from there, we used that data to develop different models of what's going on in the brain during all the different types of spiritual practices, and really kept expanding it and developed into this field of neurotheology and trying to think about human beliefs, different experiences that people have, practices that people have. And it's been incredibly fun and exciting. And I feel like there are so many different ways of taking this, ranging from the very practical, that more about the kinds of discussions that you're all having about our health and well-being and how we achieve that, to the very kind of philosophical and esoteric about what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of consciousness, what is the nature of the universe, and how do we get to that and try to answer those questions. And while I certainly haven't found the actual answers to those questions yet, it's been a wonderful journey. And as I always like to say, if I ever do figure it all out, I'll make sure I let everyone know.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.